This is the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast. I'm Dalton Gray.
And I'm Ryan Humphreys.
Broadcasting from our hometown of Fairbanks, Alaska. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast, everybody. I'm Dalton.
I'm Mo.
And this week, we are part 2 of the last of the Great Brown Bear Men. Last week, we did part 1 of this book review, kind of the first time that we've done a project like this. And it's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lot of fun to kind of get more into just more reading, you know?
Yeah.
It's just kind of refreshing. There's a lot of neat information that you really wouldn't get outside of just reading an old book. And lots of hunting stories in this book. Some funny, some not. Last week we kind of covered the first 5 chapters. And so this week our episode will be a little bit shorter and just kind of a summary of the rest of the book and how Bill Pinnell and Morris Talifson came to the end of their guiding career in Kodiak and the changes that they faced towards the end there. And the author does a really good job of documenting stories, but also bringing it to a definitive end. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the genius of even the title of the book, The Last of the Great Brown Bear Men. That denotes a definitive end of a time period or of a type of person or a lifestyle.
The end of an era.
Exactly. So, chapter 6, kind of where we left off last week, really just kind of kicks right into a bunch of hunting stories. And we don't want to spoil the book in its entirety. And that's kind of the genius of the book altogether, is the compilation of stories from these guys that don't really exist outside of this book, to our knowledge. There's a lot of, I guess the word might be folklore around Pinnell and Talifson. Mm-hmm. The name automatically garners some attention when you say Pinnell and Talifson. A lot of guys up here that have spent any amount of time even outside of the guiding circle in Alaska, a lot of people that have been here for any amount of time know who Pinnell and Talifson were.
Right.
And just kind of where the book fell to here, one of their advertisements, I don't know if this will show up on camera or not, but the top page there was one of their newspaper advertisements that they had for over 25 years. And that hunt story is told in the book as well. There's a lot of neat pictures that there are scattered throughout the book here. But kind of where we wanted to go with this episode is not so much to focus on hunting stories, a little bit perhaps, but the main focus is the effect that they had and the influence that they both had on Alaska Fish and Game policy and regulatory processes and a few other things that we'll get into. But before we do that, there is a chapter about their time up north,
right,
in the Brooks. And Chandler Lake is where they had one of their camps back in the day. I think that was in the 60s, wasn't it?
I don't remember. It's not, that
yeah,
sounds
Wander
right.
into the Heartland. August of 58, they started to go up to the Brooks. Started off, caribou, sheep, grizzlies, and I think all the way up into the mid 60s was where, if I'm correct, is where they kind of left off. And
Seems like they hunted up there for about a decade.
yeah, something along those lines.
And it just became too much for
right,
them to move all their gear back
right,
and forth. And
right. Kind of the end of that chapter. Yeah, so it says during PNT's decade-long conduct of Arctic hunts, Talifson had to stay south some years in order to properly maintain the aging Olga Bay camp. And so Bill would sometimes continue to go north and do some hunts up there, but in the ending years of that um, of that venture, one of them, it seems like, stayed behind to keep an eye on the cannery, kind of maintain that. So it was, relatively speaking, to their time up here, it was kind of a short stint compared to everything else that they did on Kodiak, and that's where the main focus was. But then in that chapter about the Brooks, as you notice their description of grizzly bears
yeah,
in the interior.
there's quite a bit of information or time devoted to
Yeah,
telling those stories.
yeah, yeah. There's several stories about well, even in capital letters, Mr. Grizzly. It really does seem like the major thrust of Pinnell and Talifson was bear hunting. Sheep hunting gets a very brief mention, caribou hunting briefly, moose hunting briefly. Really, no stories about those animals at all.
Not really. Yeah, most of the stories talk about the problems they had with the grizzly bears,
Right.
even while they were trying to do caribou and
Exactly.
moose and
Exactly.
sheep. Like, yeah, they were doing caribou and moose and sheep, but
Right.
boy, those grizzly bears.
Yeah. Really seemed to give them a hard time. And there are stories in there of grizzly bears pinning them on the roof of a cabin in their base camp, where
Yep.
they had to spend an entire day because there was a marauding grizzly bear in their base camp that was eating caribou meat and went into the skinning shack and ate capes
Right.
and, and would drag the trophies out and about on the base camp area, and how many problems they had with grizzly bears, which they still said were relatively insignificant to the number of times that they even saw bears, that they actually had this happen. But nonetheless, it still happened multiple times.
Yeah.
And that's something that's interesting, even from that long ago. You know, at this point, we are 40, 60 something years to the future of when this of when these stories specifically were written about their Brooks Range time, and we still kind of describe grizzly bears the same way compared to coastal brown bears. They just seem a bit more cantankerous.
Like the
They're
further north you go.
Yeah, they're more desperate
Yeah.
for food. They sleep longer. They have to work harder for their
Yep.
meals. Whereas coastal bears just kind of have an easy life compared to interior grizzlies.
And what they do, wander around, pick a fish out of the stream, lay down, eat it,
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas the grizzly bears are,
fighting for every scrap of food they get.
yeah, yeah, they're digging up a patch of dirt as big as this table to eat a field mouse.
Yeah.
So,
Or some grubs.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's starvation country up north, but it's interesting how some things draw a direct parallel to even how we look at them now. But other things, we look at the way that they spoke of them back then and how we view them now, and it didn't go the way that they thought. And specifically to that, they had some serious bones to pick with the management styles of Alaska.
I would understand why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess what stood out to you specifically when the changes came in the regulations that directly affected Bill and Morris?
At the time, the complete lack of disregard for the guides who had been there for what, 40, 50, 60 years.
Yeah, some of them, yeah.
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 Now, what stood out to me the most, really, though, was the fact that Fish and Game ended up going, or at the time it was U.S. Fish and Wildlife,
Right.
ended up going the direction, initially anyway, ended up going the direction that Pinnell and Talifson wanted them to because they had proof that what they wanted to do worked, because it was the same things that they practiced since
Right.
they started.
Right.
Not hunting sows with cubs. They
Right.
just didn't do it. They said, we shouldn't do that. That's going
Right.
to kill way more bears.
Right.
And so they didn't hunt sows with cubs, even though all the other
Mm-hmm.
guides did.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was one of the ones that stuck out to me the most. And then, having to sue the state in order to have enough hunters to stay.
Twice.
Yeah, to stay alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And winning.
Yeah, sued the state twice and won.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because originally
it went 4-5.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that regulatory change, it only allowed outfitters to be able to take 4 hunters per year.
Per guide per year.
Yeah, per guide per year. And so other outfits that were willing to hire other registered guides.
I think it was
were
just
able,
an assistant guide.
It was other registered guides.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. Which still operates the same way even today. That there are advantages for a registered guide or a master guide to hire other registered guides to work under his outfit, but then they can possess more state guide use areas as well, and they can all kind of work together under the same umbrella.
Right.
And that is still advantageous today, but specifically for this scenario, the state at this point, this was post-statehood, and the state of Alaska had said that no registered guide outfitter could take more than 4 bear hunters. Was it per year?
Yeah.
I think it was.
Per year.
Yeah, per year, which Morris and Bill, that's a combined total of 8, and they said that wasn't hardly even enough to pay
they charged $1,200 per hunter at that time.
Yep. And that was barely even enough to pay their costs for the year.
Yeah.
And Bill and Morris didn't want to hire other people and expand necessarily.
Right. Well, they lived there year round.
Right.
They weren't a huge outfit. They still hunted all the bears themselves, even if they had assistant guides with them.
Right. Right.
And what the book says that the law was targeted at was the old timer, big old time guides who had a lot of space, and it was trying to push them out. At least the design of the law, whether the lawmakers themselves had the intent or not, was to push out the big old guys so the new young guys could get in and get a piece of the action.
Which we still see happening in
again and again and again. It doesn't stop.
Much of the state even today. And it's not just Kodiak either.
No.
But we'll just have to leave that sleeping dog lie.
I'll make a comment. I've been to one guide camp for 2 weeks, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
A little over 2 weeks, I guess. I was in one guide camp on a hunt. Big guide camp, a lot of people there. I got to meet a lot of guides from all over the state, guys who've been all around the world. It was awesome. While I was there, minimal issues. It was awesome. It made me say, I want to do this every year, right? But because of the drama, both what was happening that year and other years, and from what I've heard you tell stories of everything, not even just regarding people there, but in other camps, and it's like the drama is just like everywhere else. Every other part of life, that where there's people involved, there's young guys trying to push out old guys. There's young guys trying to push out. There's somewhat young guys trying to push out younger guys. And it just becomes this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's just from somebody who went on was a packer once.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a lot of value in a competitive nature in any industry. But when it becomes so tightly wound with what we have right now, just talking about the guiding world, I mean, there is a lot of balls in the air now.
There's more guides than the state can handle.
Yeah.
Depending on the animal.
Right. And that depends on perspective, because some guides would argue with that, and I could see where they're coming from. I've heard interesting arguments from both sides, really. But the state is trying to figure out, how do we handle this?
It's a huge means of income. Yeah.
And so there have been and continue to be closures in some units across the state. 19C is one of them, where there's been a lot of changes in the last couple of years on how the state is managing guiding, and specifically sheep hunting in 19C, and how they're going to handle that going forward. Well, we'll see if it works, but we have to remember, this is not the first time that this has all happened.
Right.
This has been going on since the origin of guiding in the state. There's always been competition for areas. There's always been competition for federal land permits, which are exclusive to one outfitter per federal concession. And there is a lot of value in that. On a state land concession, most of the time, anybody else who's registered for that unit can also possess that same unit that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can have a competition for who's going to get there first, who's going to set up a camp there
So
first.
would you prefer that or what they ran into, where they had to stand in line to get a hunt area for a tag at the beginning of each season?
So that story was specifically mentioned in here where there was, I think it was an Air Force guy who had gotten the tag for one of their units. I think it was the Carlick Lake permit.
That sounds right, yeah.
And there was an Air Force guy who had gotten there in line first and had gotten that tag. And then I think it was Bill Pinnell that came in to get the tag.
His client.
He had booked a client a year prior for that spot. And he told the Fish and Wildlife officer, he said, well, what am I supposed to do?
He asked the Fish and Wildlife officer, well, where's he going to camp? And the Fish and Wildlife officer pointed at his cabin.
Yeah. And then Bill promptly responded with what was blotted out in the book can only be assumed as an expletive in response. But he said, no, I'll have somebody staying there the whole time and pay them to be there if I have to, but they're not staying in my camp. So long story short, Bill brought the client to the cabin.
Right.
And it says that there was a lot of tension amongst the assistant guides and the packers and Bill and the client, anxiously awaiting to hear back from Fish and Wildlife on whether or not they were going to be given the tag. And Fish and Wildlife eventually responded to them on the radio and said, hey, that guy said he's not going to hunt. You have the tag. Go ahead.
Right. Well, yeah, they flew over with a helicopter.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was too much snow to land the helicopter, and I was after that they got the tag.
Yeah, exactly. So there, but that system, immediately after it was kind of subdivided into areas and guides were given allotments and you had to be in person in line to get a tag. There was no random draw system even back then. And I believe that was like the late 60s. I think it was.
That
like 68-ish. Yeah, something like that. So then Pinnell and Talifson sued the state of Alaska and won, and the state gave them 5 bear tags per registered guide.
These are two different situations we're talking about.
Right. And then they sued the state again, at which point the state said, okay, there is no cap on the number of clients that you're allowed to take in a year.
Not like the kids say. There's just no physical limitation to the number.
Right. Didn't we talk about this last week?
I think we talked about something else the kids were saying.
Yeah. I think no cap was in there, though. But
was it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, so just from a political perspective, there was a lot of things changing back then. And Bill and Morris were not against more regulation.
No, they advocated for
they
more
wanted,
at times.
like, for instance, 1 brown bear every 4 regulatory years to preserve the population for longer sustained hunting yields, and which is in direct parallel with the Alaska State Constitution. Maximum sustainable yield for residents and non-residents.
Right.
But first to the residents. And so some of the residents at this time were even mentioned in the book as being up in arms and saying, well, you guys are hogging all the good spots.
Right.
And they mentioned hunters in droves coming down from Fairbanks and Anchorage, and Coast Guard guys and Naval guys and Air Force and Army guys. And we still hear people complaining about stuff like that even today.
Really?
Which is
residents in guided
kind
areas?
Of funny. Because, well, not just that.
I know, yeah.
But
moving
it's
into an old guides area.
Right. Well, it's that, but it's also, there's always a scapegoat. In someone's defense, there always seems to be a scapegoat in their defense.
Right.
And it seems like a U.S. military member is pretty much always in the equation somewhere.
Yeah.
About all these GIs and
Yeah, I mean,
when in reality, you don't have any more right to be where you are than they do.
You and I both used to hunt with somebody who was in favor of getting rid. He said, "We don't need these bases up here."
That's right.
He said, "No." I said, "Well, what would happen to the Fairbanks? Like, you wouldn't be able to. Nobody would be able to afford to live here. It's what makes up the population." Yeah, well,
Right.
it would be better, and we could survive. And and part of me says, maybe I would like it a little better,
Yeah.
at least for a little while. But nobody would be able to afford anything.
Yeah.
The housing problem would go away.
Right.
But the city couldn't afford to plow without.
There would be a whole lot of
Yeah.
changes if the military left Fairbanks, and if the U.S. military is watching, please stay.
Yeah.
We're not. Yeah, we're
We
not.
love you. Just stay out of our hunting spots.
But again, that's just another kind of a comedic parallel that even they had.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Had some whining and moaning about the U.S.
officer with the
military.
helicopter. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Even they had some gripes. But
What, the coasties are causing a problem?
yeah, but you know what? They're only up here for so long.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't they be able to enjoy it? They have residency here.
It's the opportunity of a lifetime for most of them that they would never have got otherwise.
Absolutely.
And for really the small percentage of the huge number of them that are here that actually get out and try to hunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, really.
Knock yourself out.
Because
Get out and enjoy it.
Because if we're not talking about hunting, the same people who hate running into those guys out hunting,
Yeah.
which I get, we've all been there,
Yep.
are the same exact people who will turn around and want to bend over backward to help one in a different situation because he's serving our country. And I realize the politics and who supports who and all that changes, but really, we want to support our troops, and that's
right.
And
it's just the easy scapegoat.
It is. It's an easy scapegoat, and there's a reason for it. Most of them get out there with zero.
Yeah.
I didn't say all of them.
No.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Get out there and have no idea what they're doing.
And you know what? You better believe that if I was in the military and I got sent all around the world from duty station to duty station, I would be hunting every single place I could.
Everywhere possible.
Every single place I could. And I would look through my options for future duty stations and pick out spots where I could hunt.
You'd be on the maps all the time.
Absolutely. Anyway, so then we get along to the part where now they're not capped anymore with the number of bear hunters that they can take, and now they're pushing for more legislation as far as one bear every 4 regulatory years, which now we see that applied to a lot of the state. I believe most of, it's not all of, but most of Southeast Alaska is one every 4. I think Yakutat is one every year. There's a lot between Yakutat and Central Gulf where it's one every year.
Is there some one every 2?
I don't know specifically.
I thought there was, and that could have changed.
Maybe, but there's a lot of areas that are one every 4, which are, deemed as trophy management, right? And they're trying to keep the population high. And I have never been in an area of the state where it's one bear every 4 years. And specifically, we're talking about brown grizzly bears here. We're not talking about black bears. Everywhere that I have been where it's a one brown bear every 4 years, there's always a significant surplus of brown bears around.
Including trophy-sized animals.
There has never been a shortage in any of those places. You are always, even if you're not seeing them all the time, there's always fresh tracks everywhere.
Because even if you're the resident that has the honey hole and can shoot a 10-footer every year.
Yeah. Yep.
You can only shoot one every 4 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why, I took your dad and a friend of ours, a family friend of ours, on that brown bear hunt at the beginning of October. And I told them both, I said, look, I am not shooting a bear unless it is one that I am completely satisfied with going to bear jail for the next 4 years. Not being able to shoot another brown bear in a 4-year unit.
Right.
Because I get to do this all the time. I enjoy bear hunting, and I don't feel the urge to just shoot a bear just to shoot a bear. I already killed one brown bear for myself years ago, and I've helped a lot of people in between then and now, and I'm just as happy to just help them get their bears. But, our buddy's bear that he got was a great bear, 10-foot class bear. Your dad decided to shoot one, and he knew full well that,
Yep.
I shoot this bear. That's my bear for 4 years in this unit, but I'm okay with it because I don't know what life is going to be like in 4 years.
Right.
But I mean, in that area, we saw a lot of bears. But that's because those units are managed for high numbers, for trophy experiences, like what Pinnell and Talifson had in mind when they came up with that solution. At least the book gives the impression that it was their idea.
They were very instrumental in getting it implemented.
Yeah. And there was another suggestion that they had. I forget what it was. I thought there was another suggestion that they had that was a management idea
That was or wasn't implemented.
that wasn't implemented. And I don't...
Because we talked about Sal with Cubs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that fishing game started that in Kodiak, and eventually went and stayed wide with it.
Oh, I know what it
And that was
was.
because of them.
I know what it was. And it did happen. It was aerial gunning.
Oh, that's right.
Because a lot of Kodiak, and there is even still some cattle ranching,
but it's all on one end now,
on
right?
Kodiak, but now it's all very contained.
Yeah, before it was all
Right.
over the place, and so they would just shoot
There
anybody
was-
that was a problem. Any bears they thought were a problem.
Right. And they said there was, I think it was a Super Cub with an M1. And it could fire, I forget what it was, like 50 rounds in a 3-foot circle. That was how they described the spread.
M1.
That's what it said. I'm pretty sure
you read
that's
this
what
book
it said.
a couple weeks, like what, last week? Finished these chapters,
Yes.
and it's been a couple of weeks for me, and it's been a busy week, so my recall is a little less.
Pretty sure that it said there was an M1 strapped to it.
Because an M1 isn't a machine gun,
No. And I thought that was interesting too.
unless they meant an M2, because that is a machine gun.
Like a 50 caliber Browning or something.
Yeah, well, it would be effective.
Yes, it would.
Oh, here we go.
Let's see. Did you find it?
Yeah, all right. I'll just read this excerpt. Page 204. In January 1964, Kodiak guides began speaking out against pressures being applied to Kodiak bear by cattlemen bent on reaping revenge for cows the animals had killed. The guides became vocal about the same time a scandal broke out that ranchers were killing Kodiak bear from a Piper homemade fighter with a mounted M1 that fired so fast its shots blurred, placing all its lead inside a 3-foot circle at 150 yards. So it was probably like an M1 Grand, which is a semi-auto that they could fire very rapidly, which would be effective.
Yeah.
30-06 firing semi-auto,
Mm-hmm.
very effective.
Yeah. So they were shooting bears from a Super Cub, otherwise dubbed the homemade fighter.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably a J3.
Yeah.
If it was ranchers,
Mm-hmm.
it was probably a leftover from, like a grasshopper leftover from the war.
Yeah. Probably even painted olive drab.
OD green, yeah.
Olive drab with a white star on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they did they end up suing? No. So reading on from right after that paragraph, and I'll direct quote here. Perhaps as many as 35 to 45 Kodiak brown bear were slaughtered in 1963 alone. The sad fact was, as revealed by Jim Reardon in his August 1964 Outdoor Life article, that the airborne killings had been going on already for a decade, and, in fact, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game had participated in the hunts for 2 years on a hush-hush basis.
Yeah, and so they sent information to Outdoor Life specifically about that aircraft.
Yep.
And the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, with some political pressure, got the Piper grounded.
Yep.
So they basically, they using the law went outside what they would have been their normal abilities, and were able to ground that aircraft for breaking another law, which is going to be the most effective thing to do.
Right.
Suddenly, the people who own the airplane can't use the airplane anymore. They're not going to be so inclined to.
Right. So then I just kind of came across this again here, and I wanted to read this one just briefly here. And I'm quoting, "Seemed like the biggest problem occurred when the military people got wind of our bear," Morris says. "Officers from Kodiak Naval Station started hunting Kodiaks. Then those officers must have spread the word to people in other branches of the service, because Army and Air Force officers from Anchorage and Fairbanks soon began coming down in droves to hunt the bears. We could see, Pinnell concludes, that the island simply wasn't big enough to produce bear for all who wanted to take them. Things had to change. Amid the acclaim of Pinnell and Talifson, as well as other far-sighted sportsmen in the state, those changes began in the fall of 1967, when the Alaska Department of Fish and Game finally announced an emergency closure of a large portion of Kodiak Island to bear hunting. The new closure lasted until the fall of 1969, when the state reopened all of Kodiak to bear hunting, but during much shortened seasons and on the Kodiak National Wildlife Refuge by federal permit only. So that's where they started the permit process, was 69.
What's interesting to me,
They closed it for almost 2 years.
Is how when the statehood and the Alaska Department of Fish and Game was started, is this book really shows how there was an issue, so they just would change some huge sweeping thing. All right, no hunting for 2 years.
Yeah,
that'll fix the problem.
Yeah,
right. And because a lot of us get kind of upset now at the fact that, why isn't something being done about this? Why can't we shoot grizzly bears like we can shoot black bears in the interior at this point?
Yeah.
Well, they learned early on that sometimes the big sweeping rules were a problem.
Yeah.
I think they're a little overly cautious now.
Right.
I think the White Mountains herd is a good example of that. It's even an example of them doing too much at one time, 1 year, and then deciding it's not. I do think they're doing their best. I don't think they're a bunch of idiots or anything like that, like some people that I've talked to about it.
No.
Who I assume, because they seem so anti the regulation, I can only assume that their opinion is it should just be open for everybody to shoot caribou whenever they want. Because otherwise it's not going to be managed.
Right.
Anyhow. But you see no hunting, right? And then huge drastic steps. I mean, to go from to do something even like every area you can get one tag for. Mm-hmm. That's a huge step.
Yeah.
And then you're hurting your guides that are bringing income into the state.
Right. I forget what it was. I just read something about Kodiak and how many millions of dollars outfitting brings in today on an annual basis.
I'm sure Kodiak. It's a huge number.
It's a lot. I forget where I read that. I'll have to look that up and find it and send it to you. But it's surprisingly high. Even for just an island that's only about 100 miles long and 50 miles wide.
Well, a modern example to overreaction by state government would be COVID. We're shutting down bear hunting.
Yeah, to eliminate travel, and that was a weird thing.
Yeah,
very weird.
Well, somebody who didn't know what they were doing and said, "Oh, that's easy. Let's do that." Which we can all make that jump decision on anything, but
yeah. I think it is a lot smarter to handle things in balance and not try to have a huge swing. There's
I agree.
There's the old adage that too much of anything is a bad thing. Even if it's a good thing, if you do it too much, it's a bad thing.
You gotta have balance.
And specifically referring to the aerial shooting of brown bears that were causing problems with the cattle herds, we would look at that, and I read that section of the book and thought, well, good. They shouldn't have been doing that. There should not have been so much cattle ranching that it imposed on the bear population to the point that they felt like they had to shoot all these bears. Because that's hurting the population in that area anyway, right? Well, then you look at it now, and today what we're dealing with specifically is the Mulchatna caribou herd is being protected from the air by Fish and Game helicopters, and have been for the last couple of years anyway. And there are several outstanding lawsuits going on where multiple angles they are being attacked, from some out of state, some in state, and they're being told you can't do that. And that is specifically for the protection of the caribou herd. The Mulchatna caribou herd has tanked, has been for years. So the number one way to rebuild a herd is calf recruitment. And the calves aren't surviving because predominantly the bears are killing so many of them.
And the bear population is probably some of the highest in the state there.
Right. And there's very little hunting pressure out there.
Yeah, people say, well, just open up the hunting. Well, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
It's 2 bears per year out there now.
Yeah.
They did extend it, and there's still not enough kills being reported out there. So Fish and Game is intervening. Nobody's out here to shoot these bears, so we're going to shoot them. And all in all, they've killed, I think the first year they killed like 90 something, and the next year they killed 70 or 80 something.
I think it's been on close to an average of about 90 a year.
Yeah.
One year, I think it was just over 100.
Yeah.
Right. And it's usually like 90 some grizzlies and a couple of black bears or something.
And a couple of wolves.
And it's only bears in the calving grounds, within a few hundred yards of the calving grounds.
They're only shooting the bears that are moving in on the caribou to kill calves.
Right. And the difference between that and what these ranchers were doing too is I believe the ranchers were they were mad at bears. Mm-hmm. And so they were just flying and shooting any bears they saw.
Well, no. That was specifically a Fish and Wildlife, or Fish and Game sanctioned plane. That was through Fish and Game.
The Piper being shot at by shooting the M1?
Yeah. Yeah, if you go back to that page.
I got the impression that they weren't supposed to be doing that. Like they were doing that after the law had been passed that you weren't supposed to do that.
No, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game had participated in the hunts for 2 years on a hush-hush basis.
Okay, so I missed.
So that was also Fish and Game, but it was on a hush-hush basis. So who actually knew what was going on? What was the approval process like? Was there any approval? We don't know. And believe me, I'm the first one to advocate in favor of intense predator management. I'm not against aerial shooting of predators when appropriate. But in this situation in the book, related to cattle ranching, I think we would probably all find ourselves on the same side of it.
Well, yeah,
we
I
don't
kind of
like
felt that way. I certainly didn't feel the way they felt at the time when I read that, like, oh, that shouldn't have been happening. I get where the ranchers are coming from.
Yep.
And there's arguments, well, just build a bigger fence, or, everybody's got an argument.
Yeah, you go ahead and see how big of a fence
I'm not
you
saying
have
that's
to build to keep out a brown
I'm not
bear.
saying that's a good argument. Everybody has a different argument on what should be done, and I think there's a balance for everything. I think a great example is the wolves in the lower 48. Should they have killed every single wolf? Probably not. But guess what? At the time, it seemed like the best idea.
Yep. Perspectives change, and I think it's wrong to judge decisions that were made 40, 50, 60 years ago off of today's morals.
Even 100 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's wrong to judge those decisions off of how we see things today. I
completely agree.
Just like in 100 years from now, people are going to look at the stuff that we're doing and say, what is wrong with you guys?
Right.
And you might think that right now. And if you do, then go ahead and change your channel.
No. Finish it out. I'm sure we'll say something you like. Just leave a comment.
Oh, the fire you invite. But specifically in relation to the Mulchatna aerial gunning project, and this is probably unnecessary to even say this, but I have seen
we say lots of stuff like that.
A surprising number of hunters in Alaska that I would have thought we would have aligning opinions on this over that are on the other side of it and saying it's totally out of bounds for Fish and Game and they really shouldn't be doing that and they should be giving those aerial gunnery permits to private citizens with planes.
I am all for heavily regulated, commercialized intensive predator management.
Okay.
I'm all for it.
Yep.
It needs to be heavily regulated. It needs to be actively regulated. It can't be regulated by the same... It cannot be managed by the same people who are trying to just manage our herds right now, right?
Yep.
The decisions on how many bears to kill can be, where to kill them, and when to kill them can be. But then you need to hire 10 or 20 people is all it would take. At least that's all it would take for a private business to do it. And sell licenses to commercial companies, and they can bring their helicopters up here. Mm-hmm. And they can have all the big Texas oil guys who want to shoot a bear out of a helicopter because they're, whatever. I realize this wouldn't go over well.
No, it would not.
And they can come pay 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 grand, right? A lot of them, 100 grand is nothing for them. They don't have to go sit on a beach for days in the cold to shoot a bear. They can shoot one out of a helicopter. And a lot of them would want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the state gets 10%.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Or whatever, or 50%. Like, you could pay for all of the state's management needs off of some hunts like that, and it would take care of bears there, and we could do it for wolves over here, and make it wide open for residents like it is.
Right.
Give them a chance, and if they're not coming in, commercialize it.
Right.
I think that would work great. Do I think it would happen?
Exactly.
Do I think it would last more than a year?
Exactly.
Who knows? I mean, the state's done a good job of sneaking around every court order. Court says, stop doing it because of this. And they say, okay, well, we won't do it that way. We're going to hop around that. Right. We're going to do it this way.
Which they have done.
They've done that 3 years now? 4 years now?
Yeah. So I agree with everything you just said. But from the perspective of, is that actually going to happen?
Right. And is it sporting?
Probably not.
No. But
so then, assuming that it won't happen, I'm on board with them doing it the way they're doing it.
Right. I agree. It just costs them so much money to do it the way they're doing it.
It does.
And back to from their perspective with the cattle ranchers, what I just described is would be worse in the eyes of Mr. Pinnell and Talifson than what was happening.
Yeah.
However, the difference was, the biggest difference is that these bears aren't being hunted that are the problem right now.
Right.
The bears here were, and these bears were on what was U.S. federal, wildlife protection land, for managed by, not just by the state but also by the feds, federal permits and everything. And there's some major differences from what's happening now to what's happening then. Sure, it's not sporting,
right?
But we also have guns.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That'll come in a future podcast episode about a different book.
It will. Anyhow, we can get off of our
that specific topic
today, but it all ties into today.
The other major difference is when Pinnell and Talifson were going through this process of trying to decide and trying to enforce ethical regulations on wildlife management. Okay. That was a pioneering concept. That wasn't going on Kodiak before that. It was all kind of, originally it was on the honor system for all intents and purposes.
Right.
Seasons were kind of an open book at that point, and you just kind of hunted them when
they hunted well
when you wanted to.
Cold months. Yeah,
right.
Because they could get people paid to do it.
Only when the permitting process came out, and I think it was 69,
something like that,
did they have, and it was in the book, it said much shortened seasons. So the shortened seasons, the reduced allotment of tags, all of that kind of played into a natural system of management for a numbers population game.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pioneering concept for that time, because they knew the bears had value, but they didn't know what that value really was. They knew what the value of a hunt was because, look, this is how much we need to make. This is what our cost per year is. This is how much we feel right charging a client. Now, we are 60-something years into the future from then, and we know what a hunt is worth. We know what the quote-unquote dollar amount
the state has a dollar amount
is
for
worth
each animal. Because when you either break a law or make a mistake and shoot something illegally, that's what the state charges you for that animal.
Right. So, well, and that's another good point, is animals are a natural resource of the state of Alaska.
Yep.
So it's a natural resource just the same as oil is. It's obviously different, but it's categorized the same.
I think a better example is timber.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely.
Oil, we keep finding more and more ways to extract it. Everybody said we were going to run out a long time ago, and there's no sign of that happening anytime soon.
Right.
Trees, I think obviously the state's a great example of how they could be properly managed.
Yeah.
If we were allowed to cut them down.
Well, isn't the roadless rule gone now?
I don't know, man. I think it's being under a lawsuit right now.
Interesting.
It goes back and forth and up and down, and I'm all for removing the roadless rule if we do it right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for doing some logging because
Has
we've
to be
hunted.
done right, though.
It has to be done right, but we've hunted in areas that were clear cut. I mean, you see pictures, and it's just looks like a pile of toothpicks. It looks like they just ran over it and ground everything into toothpicks because all the logs are in the water, and they floated them down to Washington and turned them into paper, which isn't what they're doing with it now. In those same places where you and I have walked the creeks and shot deer, there's trees bigger around than you can put your arms around.
Oh yeah,
it's 6 foot. Some of them 6 foot diameter bases already. And the old stumps where they cut the trees down, there's trees growing out of or around or on top of it. It's just so the soil is so fertile.
Yeah,
it is one of the best places, and I guarantee the Amazon rainforest is just as good for growing trees. Not to bring in a whole nother thing.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if you manage the population of trees, you can cut trees, you can grow trees, it's a natural resource. Right. Animals are a natural resource. I do believe humans are more valuable than animals.
100%.
That we have the God-given right to hunt and to kill and to consume.
Yep.
But that we should manage.
Yep. Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. There is a lot of value that we put on land and land use and development. But to what end? Well, at the end of the day, if it's us or them,
it should all be looked at based
it's going to be us.
Human flourishing.
Yeah. It's going to end up being us. Whether we like it or not, it's going to end up being us. Yeah. I don't think it's right to prop animals to a level where they should not be.
Right.
I mean, it's a brute beast of the field, meant to be destroyed. So, anyway, moving along into the final couple chapters of the book. Really, the middle section of this book, I guess from chapter 6 all the way up to the last couple of chapters, is just chocked full of hunting stories. Yep. Story after story after story.
And they're all kind of telling a little different aspect of the guiding.
Right.
What it's like to guide brown bears and Kodiak.
I think they mentioned that they, at the time that this book was completed, that Pinnell and Talifson had employed over the years over 150 assistant guides and packers up to the point of one of these stories. So they didn't really ever expand.
So that wasn't a lot. It's not a lot for that period of time.
Yeah. But they always kind of hunted together in a group, and even the last hunting story in the book, there is still one of the guys there as I think he was helping to make breakfast, or he was in camp as a camp hand, and he had worked with Pinnell and Talifson for 20 or 25 years at that point. And they spoke very highly of having long-term help, but 150 guys over the course of however long it was. I mean, late 40s, I think it was when they started, or maybe early 50s. And so, 25, 30-ish years, something like that. I think they retired in 1990. Was that right?
No.
Or was it earlier than that?
I believe it was earlier than that. I don't think it's actually in this book. Because I'm at the last couple pages here.
I thought there was something that 50 years they'd been partners, but that was not.
Yeah, so
that was
because
not
they were 10 years difference in age.
Yeah.
And this was written, I think, before either one of them had died, right? And I think though
this one came out in 80, didn't it?
Yes, I believe. I can look this up very quickly right here.
1976 was the final chapter. And at that point, one of them was 67. Yeah. Anyway, but the last chapter kind of is let's say
39 to 86. 47 years.
Yeah.
It's a lot of years.
Yeah. Yeah. The last chapter does a really good job of putting an end to the whole thing, and it has a very final feel to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The author does a great job of filling the middle of the book with just story after story after story so that you can kind of get a feel for how a lot of the hunts went.
Yep.
And, he references certain areas over and over
You
and
really get
over
to know
again.
how they hunted.
Right.
With those stories, what they were like,
Exactly.
what their opinions of everything were.
Right, exactly. Some of their temperaments and their dispositions and how they dealt with clients in certain ways, and the variety of clients, obviously, that you have through your camp in the course of 40 something
Right.
years. And that today in the guide world, there are not a whole lot of guides in Alaska right now that are currently still operating that have been guiding for that amount of time. Very, very few. And it's an interesting aspect to look at that as some of the veterans kind of age out of the guiding industry up here. And we've already, seen quite a number of them, grow old, and a lot of them out of the industry or passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And you see kind of the changes in how things are being run now and the perception of the guide world. And the guys that have some of the best reputations in the state are guys that run a hunt like the old days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's more than just show up, see an animal, shoot an animal, go home. It's an experience. It's an involved, here's where we are. This is the history of the place. And Pinnell and Talifson had a unique ability to give a client that perspective because they had spent so much time.
Essentially, they were there from the beginning of when
Right.
guiding really started to pick up after the war.
Right. They had spent so much time in that area of Kodiak. They were so intimately familiar with all of it. And they were able to give an experience unlike most other people, if any, could give in that part of the state.
Well, imagine going on a hunt and hearing from these guys
Yeah.
these stories.
Yeah.
From you're hiking to a camp somewhere, and they're just telling you the stories of the bear that they shot there.
Yeah.
And the bear that they almost got.
The bear camp that I work at in the spring, the guide, the master guide that owns that camp and runs it, has been there for, I don't even know if I could put the right number on it, but I'm almost positive that it's 40 years, if not a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
And he,
Well, you mentioned that he knew one of these guys, right?
yes.
So they ceased operation in '86.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So he would at least been
oh,
the
yeah.
beginning of the '80s, so almost 50 years.
Yeah. He's basically grown up in this industry. He's lifelong. This is what he knows. And the other guides that work for him outside of myself and Remy, and a couple other guys now. But when Remy and I showed up there, we were the only two guys there that were under, well, I'm not going to say the other ages, but they're not young guys.
Right.
But the combination of years of experience is, I don't know,
it's
because
just a thing they do.
Because I haven't made it around to many other bear camps. I've guided for a couple other brown bear camps, and one of them had been around for about that long, and then he recently retired a couple years ago. But outside of that, I've really only spent the majority of my time guiding brown bears for one outfitter. And a lot of that is because I don't know if you could find the experience level in 3 guides that work together as you can find in that camp. And the last page of the book is so well written, just because even in that final chapter, like, you read the first few pages of it and you don't really see the end coming. It just feels like another hunting story. But you kind of realize that this is the author who had come back to camp, who had been a packer for Pinnell and Talifson. He had come back to kind of write the end of this, and he was writing everything down, and he finds some time to talk with Morris on the deck of one of the cabins and watch the sunset. And the final chapter, well, I'm sorry, the final couple of paragraphs, it ends with Morris recounting a bear that they had just killed on a previous hunt, where they shot an old sow that he actually mistook for a boar, and she was almost 9 foot. She didn't have cubs, but he had watched that same sow raise cubs at the exact same spot, at the exact same den, year after year after year. And then this year, she didn't have cubs. They shot her, not realizing that it was a sow. Conditions, whatever, that happens. And they got up to her, realized it was this old sow. She's missing a bunch of teeth, rotten teeth, whatever. She's very old. They killed her, and it was kind of a somber moment. And it was in that moment that I started to feel the finality of it, because he told that almost as if in his own way, it was the end of something.
Yeah.
It was the end of intimately familiar object in his area.
If I had known it was her and not a boar, I'd have let her go. But I guess it's better to take a big old boar that way than to let it die and go to waste.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was an attachment
Yeah.
that even he felt with killing that old bear, that old sow. And then the final couple of paragraphs there, I'm not going to read the second last one, but it kind of recaps just again where they came from, coming out of the Depression, having literally nothing, living in a tent, and then working together on the fur farm and making it up to Kodiak. And then the final paragraph says, so they stood there, the older man and the younger man. They savored deeply of the clean, salt air as Morris tapped the ashes from his pipe, both reluctant to go indoors. And the younger man, with the finality of last lights dying in the sky, perceived that in a span of 50 years, a half-century, during which time Pinnell and Talifson had been partners, the world had seen the last of the great brown bear men. So there is kind of an ominous ending there with, that was it. There could never be another Pinnell and Talifson in the way that they came there as kind of pioneers,
right,
in the way that they did, even pre-World War II, through the war, and then got into guiding as kind of an afterthought, being kind of thrust into it by Fish and Wildlife.
Right.
And all that they went through to then developing a love for it, and that being what they became remembered for. And just kind of going back to what we said in the first episode about it, it was just through hard work that they ended up there. They didn't go there expecting to be the great brown bear men.
Right.
They didn't go there seeking fame or notoriety. They came there to gold mine and fish and work and make a living in a land where they thought it was possible.
The next place.
Right.
Next place to go where they didn't owe a bunch of money.
Exactly.
Kind of like Daniel Boone, right?
Yeah.
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 Or was it Davy Crockett? Who was the one that was always owed, or was it both of them?
Well, Boone was more of the hide hunter.
Right.
Or I guess the long trips that he would go on.
He would go on the long hunts, the deer hunts. Yeah. And Crockett was the bear hunter.
Right.
But one of them was known for being in debt his whole life.
I think that was Boone, wasn't it?
Maybe it was.
Pretty
it could
sure
have been
it was.
Both of them in different ways.
Might have been both of them, but yeah. At any rate, it's kind of the classic American story.
Yeah.
The old American story, I should say, because you don't see a lot of that anymore.
Well, there's nowhere else called the Last Frontier, or called the Frontier. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Everywhere in Alaska's been hunted.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And so there feels like there is a finality in that the way that they came to be could never be duplicated, and I think that in and of itself is true.
Yeah.
I think that the title of The Last of the Great Brown Bear Men applies appropriately, in the sense that there's really nowhere left where there is so little of an industry in the hunting world in Alaska that you could go and kind of pioneer it and bring attention to it and kind of grow it into this huge thing like it is now on Kodiak. And I'm not trying to say that Kodiak never would have gotten there without them, because it would have. If it wouldn't have been them, it would have been somebody else. But the way that it
shaped what happened.
Right. But the way that it happened and the way that they had an influence on everything, I don't think that will ever happen again.
Right, yeah, and they shaped what happened on Kodiak, and in doing so, shaped what the way that brown bears have been regulated, and the rest of or bears have been regulated in the rest of the state. And I was talking to my dad the other day about hunting and about gear.
Yeah,
we were talking about gear. He's looking at backpacks and bino harnesses and all this kind of stuff. After going on that brown bear hunt, and like, man, I just didn't like this about this, and I really liked that pack, and it wasn't quite set. And he's looking at 2 or 3 packs and all that kind of stuff. But maybe we'll have to do another pack episode to talk about other packs. But anyway, I said, and I mentioned, growing up when Dalton and I did, while we're past the good old days of brown bear hunting, although they're in some ways they're just as good as they've ever been.
Yeah.
We're past the good old days of sheep hunting, and we may see in our lifetimes the end of sheep hunting as it has been known. Right now, just about, except for places where it's shut down, just about anywhere that it's open, we can, as residents, can go hunt and have a decent opportunity. Sure, we have to work harder than you used to, but you got a decent opportunity of finding a full curl every year if you're willing to put the time and work in. Make the right gear choices. But what we also have, we have the opportunities for every animal in the state, which even more so than we had Pete Bust on, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't hunt bison when he came up here. You couldn't hunt muskox when he came up here. At least not where the opportunities that are developing are even more. We can kill all the same animals, and yet we have a gear selection to make it so doable now. We're at a golden time ourselves.
Right.
That maybe look back on, all the animals are available, and we have some of the best gear. We have the best gear the industry's ever seen. And we have so many choices to choose from. Yeah, it's easy to get lost, and I love to get lost in the pages of what it was like, and to be that first.
Absolutely.
And you're going to see a theme in the way it was. The early days. You're going to see themes like that. I think maybe through the rest of what we do. Meanwhile, I'm building an AR for hunting. Another one. But I don't know.
It's important not to get so wrapped around the axle of the good old days and forget about the opportunities that you have right now. Which is exactly what you just said.
We have better access.
Right. We have, and to mention access, they were adamantly opposed to using snow machines for any kind of hunting.
Right.
Pinnell and Talifson hated the idea of being able to hunt using a snow machine. Hated it. I believe one of them said, if you're not willing to go out on foot, then you deserve to stay home. So obviously things change with time.
Right.
And there's nobody out there that we know of that's saying that. I'm sure there might be somebody out there that thinks that, but reality is that's how the world is now. You have to fly, or you have to drive, or you have to take a machine. But there is a flavor of anything you want to do. If you only want to hunt on foot, there are controlled use areas where nobody else can go in there on a motorized machine. If you want to take a machine, then you can go there too. You can kind of create your little buffet of how you want to build a hunting opportunity.
You look at the other thing is, they had cabins where nobody else had cabins. Anybody who came in even a short amount of time after they started didn't have cabins.
Right.
Yet they had a cannery that they bought when it shut down, that they could stage all their stuff out of, where everybody could get dropped off at. And then they had cabins they would hike to or boat to. They had 3 of them, right?
3 or 4. Yeah.
On all the big lakes and all the main areas that they could hunt out of. And eat from each cabin, they had all the different directions they could go. And they almost never had to sleep in a tent. Yet today, if you're going to hunt on Kodiak,
better bring a tent.
A
good one.
Not a big Agnes. whatever that one is. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's an excellent look back in time, but it's also important to realize that while the pioneering aspect of what they did on Kodiak might be over, there are still, specifically talking about guide camps,
yeah,
there are still camps where there are outfitters and guides that have been working together for multiple decades together, and they have the same and sometimes more
right,
experience in their areas than even Pinnell and Talifson did. And so in that aspect, it's important not to take the attitude of, well, nobody will ever, surpass their expertise or their
right.
experience in one area, because that's just simply not true. That's a byproduct of dedication to a craft, or kind of only knowing one thing, which is fine. Some people are lifetime carpenters and that's what they do.
Yep.
Some people are lifetime mechanics. Some people are lifetime bear hunters.
Some people are lifetime loadout guys at Spinards.
It's an oddly specific.
It is. I was talking to somebody about that the
I
other
feel
day.
like there's a story there. Yeah.
If you know, you know. Um,
Ouch. Anyway, though, if you would like to read Pinnell and Talifson, Last of the Great Brown Bear Men, we would highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Please just read the book for what it is. There's a lot of great stories in there. I think there's a tremendous amount of value in reading old books.
It's just over 220 pages.
Yep.
And that includes the photos, I think. Yeah, the photos are included in those pages. So it's a fairly easy read.
Yeah, very easy.
I think I read it in like 3 or 4 nights.
Yeah.
And it was hard to put, very, very hard to put down.
Yes. Yeah, I think I read it in about the exact same amount of time. I think I picked it up 3 times.
I started Jack Carr's new book, The Cry Havoc, which is good. I got about halfway through it, and then we're going to have Pete Bust on. So I was like, I haven't read Me Caribou is on Fire. So I got like halfway through it by the time I had him on. And then I had ordered this. And so I read it, and I haven't picked up either one of the other books yet since. So I've still got to finish Me Caribou is on Fire and Cry Havoc. And then I just ordered the Track of the Kodiak. Yep. Which is the sequel to this. It's more about how to hunt. It's by the same author, How to Bear Hunt. It's about a lot more stories involving not just the brown bear hunting. So a lot more like history of Kodiak in the areas.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. We'll see what that's like. But
yeah, I'm curious to read that. Any final notes that you'd like to go over with it?
I think we pretty well covered it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely.
Oh, they hated Weatherby. Did you catch that?
Well, they didn't hate Weatherby.
I thought that was kind of funny.
I mean, I did think about, we could have just read that little excerpt and left it at that, and that wouldn't have gone.
I don't think it'd be fair to Weatherby today to do that, because I think a lot's changed.
A lot has changed. I did find that interesting.
It was kind of funny though. It was kind of funny.
And there's a big difference. It kind of shows the difference between reliability. Yeah. And and the latest greatest. Not that the latest greatest isn't always reliable. I mean, I'm sure if you bought a good what's the gun to buy now? The
for what?
If you're a big game hunter and you have money.
Oh, Gunworks.
Yes. If you buy a Gunworks, and it's and they finish your gun and tell you it's finished. Then you shouldn't have a problem. Reliability shouldn't be an issue, right? Or
recently had a client that had a brand new Gunworks.
But doesn't that come into where I say if they tell you it's finished?
Said it was finished.
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought
it jammed and then dropped the rest of his rounds on the ground.
I thought that was the one where they told him they wanted to keep it for an extra day.
They said they wanted it back to tinker with something. Yeah, no, you're right.
They told him we want to keep it for an extra day. It's not quite fleshed out.
You're right.
We'll expedite ship it to wherever you're going.
You're right.
He said no.
Yeah, you're right.
That's why
I forgot about
that caveat. Okay. Anyhow.
I'm trying to find where they said that, because it was kind of a funny thing.
But at the time, Weatherby was. This
Oh, yeah.
Weatherby
Oh,
was
yeah.
the gun to have, right?
Yeah.
The cartridge, the gun. It was the
Yeah.
fastest, and you could argue probably one of the most ballistically advanced cartridges you could get.
100%. Yeah. And there were several stories in here of guys with 300 Weatherbys, which would be a perfectly fine brown bear
The
cartridge.
thing is,
$1,200 a year.
300 H&H was used by
Yeah.
was it Pinnell for
Yeah. One of them had a 300 H&H as well as a 375.
201.
Okay. Yeah. The brown bear hunter's weapon is his single most important piece of equipment. The Winchester Model 70 is pretty standard with us. Many of our hunters come with more expensive rifles, and some are good. But one of the most expensive brands, the Weatherby, has caused a lot of trouble on our hunts. Our experience, in italics, has been that Weatherbys jam more often than others, and when you're being charged by a 10-footer, that can be crucial. And another thing, when you're brown bear hunting, stay clear of automatics, because they're bad about jamming in precarious situations. 2. Find a rifle that fits you in a proper caliber and let that be your arm. Get to know it well and make it a simple extension of your body. And they go on to say that they both use a 375 H&H, but Pinnell also owns a 300 H&H, and it's fine. The 338 has a lot of punch and is a better all-around cartridge than the 375, but a 30-06 is as small as I'd go when brown bear hunting, and actually, it really is too small. I find the next line to be kind of funny. Use nothing smaller than a 30-06 unless you want to riddle your trophy and maybe get eaten alive. Unless you want to riddle your trophy. That's a funny expression. Obviously, there are going to be some disagreements there. But again, we're talking about something that's 60 years ago.
Right.
And maybe from the old days and judging calibers and bullets and cartridges and things like that, with the bullets that were available, I would probably still lean towards a 375 as well, which is what I lean to anyway, especially for a guide rifle.
Yeah, well, it's fairly ubiquitous up here at this point, and ammo's readily available, albeit not cheap.
Yeah, it's hard to find a brown bear hunting camp where there's not an extra box of 375 H&H just floating around.
There's a reason why I own a 375 and only have 3 bullets for it. And that is, I've looked at the ammo and go, I don't need to buy that today. I'm not going to shoot that thing anytime soon. And also, I can reload for it vastly cheaper than and make a far better load than I can buy. So,
well, get out there and buy a book. Last of the Great Brown Bear Men. Sit down in your recliner in front of your fireplace or wood stove and kick back in your red flannel pajamas this holiday season and enjoy a book. We've enjoyed reading it and we've enjoyed talking about it and kind of just exploring some of the similarities to what we're seeing now.
It's fun to look at a book, read it, and talk about it and review it. And not just review it to tell you what the book's about, but just to give you our 2 cents.
Yeah. It is a fun thing to just talk about books because we do that anyway.
We do.
Yeah. We read books and then we sit down and spend hours talking about them and telling stories.
Honestly, what this has done for us too is we both had to read this book to do this.
Yeah.
More often than not, one of us reads a book and tells the other one about it until the other one finally reads it.
Yeah. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this episode, part 2 of The Last of the Great Brown Bear Men. If you like the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and a positive written review on whatever platform you're listening to us on. We've seen a bunch of new ones keep popping up here recently. 5 stars anyway, and we appreciate that, whatever platform. If you are happening to see this on YouTube, I know that's a very small fraction of our audience, but if you're there, like and subscribe. And you can leave a comment there as well. We usually see those comments pop up. But we do appreciate the support. Happy Thanksgiving. I know that just came and went. If you're still hunting, then good luck. And get ready for Christmas time and get some books and get you all hyped up for...
Send us a book for Christmas if you want us to review it.
Yeah, we'll put Mariah's address at the bottom of this episode.
No.
Anyway, folks, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. And until then... Tread lightly, but don't tread well.